Hey, everybody, I'm Jody-Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And we have to talk about interest rates, recessions, wars, supply chains, gas prices, and George, we have to talk about lifeguards at beaches and outdoor pools. It is time for.
It's Unspun. Oh, it's that time of the year again. We'll get to the pools and the lifeguards, of
Yeah,
course.
don't start me up off top.
No,
We'll have nothing
I gotta
else.
keep you focused here.
Got focus.
You're the one who
Interest rates.
usually keeps me focused. Interest rates, yes.
It's your turn.
Oh God.
For
Well,
staying put.
economy, interest rates. I mean, they didn't they stopped. Well, they we weren't expecting a decrease this week, but I mean, just the stuff they were saying, it's just depressing because of the war that's happening. Gas is, skyrocketing. And, sure, if you live in Alberta, it's great news. It's good news for Canada on a macro level because when oil and gas are high, it's good for injecting money into our economy. But everything else down the cycle costs more, plastics, everything else, because
Groceries,
transport, groceries, everything goes
transportation.
up. So it's irrelevant. It's a moot point. It's great for Alberta. Maybe they can get off their separation rant and focus on
Oh,
taking all that
yesterday they were more
cash.
focused on taking away the ability for you to
Oh yeah, I
choose
saw that.
medical assistance in dying, which, come on. It's just so crazy. Anyway, yeah, the supply chain issues and the gas, and you look south of the border with the lineups because TSA agents aren't being paid, right? Because of the standoff over funding ICE agents and funding the economy, funding the government employees. So you know that's the pressure point that is being used, right? Mess with transportation safety. And wild, added on to that the strains of gas, like travel is going to just be unbelievably expensive, first
Yeah,
world problem for sure, but that's part of the ripple of effect here. And at the root of it, to oversimplify it, is basically the Republicans are saying you can't change what ICE agents are doing. Democrats are saying we won't fund the government unless you make it some guardrails, put some guardrails in place around ICE agents, i.e., not wearing masks, needing an actual warrant, using some level having some cap on use of force, like what we've seen over the last number of months, is just, I mean, I think most would agree is horrifying.
mhm.
Um, but so that's kind of, so we've got that going on in the US, and it's having such a ripple effect because obviously this war that the Americans have waged against Iran have put all of us in the world in danger. And the Straits of Hormuz being shut down affects the global economy. Like, this one man has managed to upend things so astonishingly in what, 16 months?
I don't think anybody expected him to make such chaos around the world this time. He didn't do it this badly last time, but he certainly has created a bunch of chaos and is not getting support now. I love the European Union's response and Canada's response was basically he's asking for NATO support, and they're like, but that's not how NATO works. And by the way, you were kind of messing with us the last year. And I saw a press conference today, I think it was yesterday in London, with the Finnish prime minister. And a journalist asked him, why don't you say to Donald Trump, you'll help in the Gulf if he helps with Ukraine? And the prime minister said, oh, that's a good idea.
What a
Two levels
coincidence.
there. One, it is an interesting idea. It's kind of extortion, but also, but why not? Fight fire with fire. But a politician responding to a journalist like that, having as you and I know, that doesn't, if you're a journalist asking questions, generally they just evade the question or
Right.
slough it off or have some answer, blah 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 blah.
Answer a different question.
Yeah, to see him sit there going, maybe I will.
And then there's
Yeah, I talked to my fella
intelligence,
guy. Yeah.
right? Then there's the intelligence side of this. High up in super MAGA guy, like election denier Kent, this guy who's like white nationalist, election
Yeah.
denier, all those things.
Good riddance, but also
but also writes a note that says, I cannot in good conscience support this war because Iran didn't pose an imminent threat. And then we see Tulsi Gabbard in front of Congress trying to explain, and it's just so, we could talk about the minutia of this and the spin on this for hours on end and still not come to any conclusion. I mean, that's what's happening with the pundits on every major media outlet in the United States, like right now. They're breathlessly trying to cover all of the things. But I think for the reasons of UnSpun podcast is kind of like, what at the root of this are we seeing happen? And what I find just astonishing is, and I'm really proud of Canada, and I'm really proud of our prime minister, who's a year ahead of this because we were Trump's first target, is that he is traveling around to try and create and connect and make deals, and is actively making deals with the partners that can be relied upon. Like the US is now the bad guy for the rest of this. And yes, one day we will get through Donald Trump, God willing. And then hopefully there's some semblance of repair that can be done here. But there's, as Mark Carney stated in Davos, the old way has been broken. And now hearing like the European Union discussing the possibility of having Canada join the EU. Like, what do you think about that? What do you think about that?
I mean, I love it. I have, my daughter's in the UK now, but she's also, my two older kids are, have Swedish passports, so they have European Union or Swedish citizenship because of their mom, so they can work in Europe. And then my son, with Amanda, you can have UK. I can get a UK passport because of my mom, and Amanda is from the UK. So adding the rest of Europe, I don't mind hanging out Italy or Spain for a while, having that option as I age out of life.
Hey, slow down there, big guy. But what would it mean, like, for Canadians who maybe don't understand? Like, does our dollar change to euros? Like, how are our economies connected? Does trade change exponentially? Like, what?
Yeah, the dollar thing has always been a choice in the union because they still have the Swedish kroner and all that stuff.
Right.
In the UK had it until they dropped out. I think, obviously if you believe in free trade and you believe it, and which is really what the union is about. We had that with America. We have it with America. We'll see what happens as it times out this summer. But that's what it's really about. It's about the free trade, but also the free movement of goods and services. So if you're a business owner and you don't have to go through all the rigmarole of dealing with, cross-border paperwork.
Right.
But even, we talk about the North American free trade. If you've ever tried to open a company in America and it's a Canadian, it's really complicated and almost not worth it because of you're basically filing taxes for the rest of your life, even if you're not running a business down there anymore.
Right, in two countries.
Yeah,
I lived in the U.S. and my parents lived in the U.S. for 25 years.
Yeah.
So having legal alien status and having a Wells Fargo bank account and having worked legally in the United States, I didn't even own a company. I just worked there.
Yeah.
And I had to file taxes in both countries in perpetuity. As long as I had money there, I had to report.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass.
It is. I know a guy he's in his 70s and he just revoked or just removed, what's the word? He got rid of his American citizenship because he was so tired of the process.
Is the word.
Surrendered. And they were like,
I surrendered mine.
They were shocked. They were like, what?
You want to
just be Canadian? Yeah. So because it kind of costs him a bunch of money, but it'll save him a bunch of money in the long run. Because if, for example, if he sells his apartment here and makes a profit, he has to file taxes in the States for that profit. I mean,
you have to.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is. So he's like, I don't want to give him a chunk of my cash from Canada.
No, we don't. But what's happening financially on a global scale, and the way our prime minister is using his economic education, his brilliance, I will say, because he has managed to do, as we've spoke about here on the podcast before, he has helped navigate Canada through the economic crash of 2008.
Mhm.
and then navigated the Bank of Britain through, or Bank of England through the Brexit
Brexit.
nightmare, right? And the only non-Brit to be appointed to the governor of the Bank of England, which is not an insignificant post, and the fact that he was successful in both, and the fact that he gets dragged by conservatives because he was a super successful businessman. It's like, okay,
The irony,
whatever.
considering
But are
most
we
people.
not surprised, George, at how I think a year ago we were talking about, we'll see how this businessman does as a
Uh-huh.
politician. Like he's
Well, there's
become
I always talk about this assumption that if you're a business person, you're going to be good at politics. That's never the case. But he was never a business person. He was mostly always a really high level bureaucrat, which is almost more unusual that a bureaucrat becomes a politician. So if people call him a businessman, I would call him a high level bureaucrat. But we'll get to bureaucrats later, I think maybe.
yeah.
But
Oh,
what
we
I
will.
think is key, and you see Polyev, who by the way is on Joe Rogan's show today, I believe I think it's aired. He was recording it yesterday. Finally, he didn't accept during the election campaign. It might have changed his results if he had. And now he's on it for whatever reason. So that'll be interesting. But
Right after
um,
Joe Rogan loses so much credibility
yeah,
because now he's
exactly.
disappointed with Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
yeah.
Ugh.
So the thing that Carney is trying to do, because a lot of these deals, and this is the argument you hear, is, oh well, this won't happen for years, which on the it's correct to a certain degree because, but I often I yell all the time about this, like talk about this, that politicians need to be brave and make decisions about things that are going to be positive in 10 or 20 or 30 years. This is the housing file. This is the homeless problem. This is not something you can fix in a term. This is things
No.
you can fix that will take 30 years. But most importantly, what I hope I'm not seeing it as a business person myself enough yet. It's confidence in the economy. The only thing to turn the economy around and make us confident about and to bring things up is to people to feel like, okay, I can start spending money again. And
Right.
I'm not seeing that yet, even with Carney doing all this stuff. People need to open up their wallets, start buying in the real estate,
Right.
start buying more stuff, start getting those renovations. A lot of my clients are in those sectors and they are suffering. People aren't getting
Yeah.
that bathroom rental. They're not doing that.
Nope.
They're not purchasing these things. They
Sitting
just
on their nest egg.
didn't know all this cash,
Yeah.
which as soon as it's released will be crazy. And then you'll see massive inflation again.
Right.
It just can people start being confident about Canada and about spending money here. And then it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy. If you do it, it comes. And so right now we're still not there yet. And when you have things like this stupid war and all this other stuff, you just kind of, oh, I'm just going to stay inside my house and watch Netflix.
Yeah, it's
That's,
exhausting. It
yeah,
truly is. The news cycle is crazy exhausting. And we're still like circling the drain on the Epstein files stuff. Like that's never going away. That's
yeah.
never going away because it's even with more and more of the elected officials on the committee in the US government who are accessing the unredacted files, what they're commenting on without actually saying the content of the files, because they're not allowed to say, but they're coming forward and saying it is so much worse than the worst thing that you ever imagined. And it's like, how is there only one woman in jail? The kingpin head guy who allegedly killed himself in jail,
Mhm.
and one ousted royal, and a couple of people who
And
have stepped away from
diplomats.
their, yeah,
Yeah.
diplomatic people and whatnot. Like, but
Mhm.
in other countries, we're seeing some movement. And who was it? Um, there was a commentator. Shoot, I wish I could remember what her name was, but she made reference to like what the reasons that the Trump administration is using right now for going in and getting Maduro out of Venezuela, or going into Iran, or
Mhm.
now talking about going into Cuba, starving Cuba and then wanting to go in. And it's wild but the reasons that are being given, it imminent threat or criminality at the governmental level in these other countries, and it's incumbent upon the American government to go in and save these people from their criminal leaders. There's a universe where you turn that lens around. Like, does that mean somebody comes in and removes Donald Trump because
Uh,
he is found out, right? Like, but it feels like the temperature is
Well, or worse, and this is what I think China's thinking about. Why not Taiwan? Like, why can't we just do what if Donald Trump can go into Venezuela and do that? Why we're going to go into Taiwan and take their leader? Because
right.
apparently it's okay now to do that if you're
And
the
Putin
big
doing it in
dominant.
Ukraine, which is now
Yeah,
4 years in, right?
yeah.
And Donald Trump was asked about this. Like, if you're going to Iran because that's an imminent threat toward the U.S., isn't Putin going into Ukraine the same? And he's like, well, I don't think so. I don't get that vibe. In my opinion, he's using "in my opinion" a lot,
Mhm.
right? So it's just, but now we hear that the Russian president is actually helping Iran with strategic locations of U.S. military. Like it's, and then Zelensky's being asked by the U.S. military to help with drone prevention and building low cost drones because the Tomahawk missiles that the U.S. are using are like, I don't even know, millions of dollars each, and Ukraine has been using like
Yeah.
$200 drones that they
But they
build.
built and designed themselves and make an
Yeah,
industry of it. It's, I mean, the whole spy world and counter spy and the complexities of that, having, met people in that world, it's definitely, trying to explain, that's that whole thing. I think just we have to focus on the obvious things and
right.
if Trump invading and doing this stuff in Iran and having its, gas has gone up by from what in America, I mean, it's gone from 60, what, $80 a barrel to 110 now, or it was a
Yeah,
60 back when he got elected. Now it's 110.
yeah,
And, you know, but really we have to focus on what houses affect Canada, our neighborhood. Everything is getting, you
right.
think about in BC alone, the property transfer tax. If people aren't buying real estate in BC like they were, that's
Right.
hundreds of millions of dollars that the provincial government's not going to get in revenue. And so I was always against the property transfer tax because I always see those kinds of taxes as unpredictable. You know,
Right.
the
And
beauties
when
of
we're making hay, we weren't saving it.
exactly. You're
Yeah.
spending it like crazy. So I also, and the fact that cities are required to have balanced budgets, and there was several, I think, there are several things, rulings that were made provincially that there would be balanced budget. I think Gordon Campbell did it once, and I think Oregon did it
Yeah.
once. They never do it. Um, but ironically, the province mandates that cities in BC have to have balanced budgets. And of course, the number one revenue source is taxation, but at least it's somewhat predictable. Unlike, there are other unpredictable ones, which I always fought against as a counselor, which are community amenity contributions and development cost levies, two very unpredictable revenue sources for the city. And so and they started, I always say, you're relying on this cash that this is predictable. It's not. You plan this big development or this big neighborhood, like the Concord Pacific land and all the viaducts going down. That
Yeah.
really, I was against it because you're relying too much on the money that's not there, that doesn't exist. It may never exist. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to underwrite the cost of removing these viaducts. And I would say, how can you predict that will be the case in the future? How do we know that? If we want to take the viaducts down, we put a budget together and a capital cost, and we say this is what it's going to cost. We need to borrow the money, and if we get some money otherwise, then we can pay down that debt. Fine, but you have to be honest
Right.
with the taxpayers. And so we are in this dilemma now where we have a lot of revenue not coming in, but oil and gas is coming in now. But we need a predictable process of taxation and revenue making, and not rely on all these unpredictable measures and taxes based on a whole bunch of other things that
So much
leads us to
uncertainty.
all these deficits and debts. And
Yeah.
that's why we are where we're at. Government spending more than they take in, and predicting the future that they can't predict. And when things like this, where Trump declares a war or adds tariffs, we end up in a state of multiple the budgets across this country, Ontario, everywhere, brutal.
Everywhere.
Quebec, they
Yeah.
just did theirs, massive debt, massive.
Yeah. And there's really no end in sight to the chaos. It's years still
Mhm.
of what we couldn't imagine where we'd be today a year ago. So it's daunting.
Yeah.
And to your original point, which creates a situation where society just stops spending, stops building, stops renovating, stops thinking in terms of, how am I going to use my money,
Mhm.
which is another tax stream, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
like
It's
it's
sales tax is somewhat predictable, but
somewhat, but not in a recession,
no, less you spend,
right?
it's regressive. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like yeah, it's everybody's in a
And the worst
state.
is not hit. There are countries on the brink of bankruptcy. Spain, I've heard, is serious trouble. Italy is serious trouble. Greece, these countries are already financially challenged. They don't have the kinds of resources. They rely on service economies for the most part. And
Right.
I mean, at least we have in Canada a lot of resources that people want and a very small
Yes.
population. By the way, we lost 100,000 people last year. That came out today. The first time in
See that.
since we've been keeping records that we've lost so many people, and mostly students, but still a negative 100,000 from 500,000 plus every year for 10 years to a negative 100,000. That affects the economy as
That's a
much as
big
you might
swing.
say, "Oh, that's great. Those ties about time we got rid of
Housing and
people."
healthcare and
Yeah, but then that's
access.
also 100,000
Yeah.
people who aren't spending money in our country
Yeah. Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. We did on one little good news note that here in British Columbia, we can point to something that David-Eby's government has managed to do is woo a number of American hospital
Right.
workers, physicians, and scientists to move here. And they love it here. I read that article and I felt really good about it because the people feel that these Americans who had felt under such strain for so long in their home country now live in Vancouver and they're like,
Yeah.
it's like heaven.
I
It's a
think, I
dream
mean,
come
anything
true
to
for us.
encourage people to come up to
Yeah.
Canada and help with that. However, if you look at some of the comments, if I looked at some of the comments in the articles, and of course, a lot of
Always.
people saying, yeah, but you got rid of 10 times more who were anti-vax healthcare workers.
Those
So
trolls are always going to live
I
there.
know,
They're
I
always
know,
going to
but
live
that's
there.
out there.
You know what, though, is so funny? The anti-vaxxers that are like joining ICE, immediately, first thing that the agency does is vaccinate them. You cannot be an ICE agent without being fully vaccinated. And that I
Oh,
find, yeah,
that
nobody's
is
really talking about. I
funny.
don't think Joe
So yeah,
Rogan's really
okay, if I get
talking about that.
$120,000 a year, I'm pro-vax. That's
Wild. It's wild. But when they figure out there's a vaccine that cures cancer, all of a sudden it's going to be fine with them.
or let you lose 50 pounds in weight. That
Oh,
was
yeah, the
fine.
GLP ones.
That's all good. No problem with that. I'm sure half those ICE agents are on one of those GLPs. So
Yeah.
let's bring it home. I'm gonna just say the word
Yeah.
pool and lifeguards, and then I'm just gonna let you go.
Okay. I mean, I've got some information that's coming down the pipe, but as a responsible member of the media, I have a couple of things that I want to multi-source before I say any specifics. But let's start with the fact that I put out a tweet. When did I put out a tweet? A month
About
ago?
yeah,
No, it was about a month ago where I
yeah.
was
You
like,
want to give
hey,
lots of warning. Time to start thinking about.
it's,
Yeah.
it was in February. I'm like, now's the time where we start training our lifeguards because of the lifeguard shortage, which is why Kitts Pool is basically closed. It's everything's
Yeah,
book
along
it
with other
online.
things.
You can only get the 300 people in there on a busy day because we don't have enough lifeguards to staff it. Not true. Um, but I want a free Kitts Pool. So let me just be upfront. COVID era restrictions all need to be lifted. It should be first come, first serve. We do not need online booking for our iconic public amenity and taxpayer funded, taxpayer owned amenity that
I want
never
to
had
get
a
on my
problem.
bike, ride across the bridge, and go
Go for a
line up to
swim.
get in the pool.
Line up
And
and
if the
get the
pool is full, I'll walk down to the beach and go for a swim in the ocean.
right. And they go, but
Why is this so hard?
it's not. But if you ask Laura Christensen of Park Board, she'll tell you that people will die in that lineup to the pool. It's like that's just such garbage. It's garbage. And we're told the lifeguard shortage. You know what? No lifeguard shortage in any other municipality. I asked Mayor Brad West, is there a lifeguard shortage in Port Coquitlam? He's like, no, we just planned for it. So then I'm like, you know what? Let's start ahead of time. Let's get ahead of this lifeguard problem because if this is actually the problem, here's your alert. Here's your
Yeah.
summer's coming. We're opening the pool in May. Should be opened April to November, but we can get to that later. But no restrictions, no COVID windows. We don't need to clean for an hour 3 times a day. None of that needs to happen. Let's open the pool and let's get it back to capacity so people can access it because they've lowered the capacity because they said the Life Saving Society requires there's one lifeguard to every 60 people. Guess what? That's a suggestion from the Lifeguard or Life Saving Society. It's
Mhm.
not what's
Yeah.
mandated at beaches. And imagine how many lifeguards you would require at a packed Kits beach.
What is
If
it?
that were true.
1,500 people can fit in that pool? What is it? 800 people? What is it?
1,800.
1,800 and
1,800 is full
60,
capacity.
one lifeguard per 60.
Yeah.
So 30 lifeguards.
Right. Which would be chaos. It'd be
Do I
ridiculous.
win a prize for math?
You
that?
do. I asked, you're very good at that. I asked my contacts who are outdoor lifeguards of decades long, like career lifeguards, how many lifeguards are required at Kits Pool at maximum capacity.
Or would fit, you mean, would fit. Or
right.
Yeah.
The right amount. The
right amount.
It was built for 1,800 people. And I personally, I don't believe that I've ever been there with 1,800 people. Like, I don't think that's what they go with. They look at the pool and like the decks are full, the pool is full.
Right.
We're full. Like, you get to a point where you're just floating around with a bunch of dirty Band-Aids and hair.
Now you're really selling it.
That's what happens on the worst day of like the hottest day when people go, yeah. But most of the time, there's a few hundred people in the pool. There's maybe 500 people all the way around and in the pool. But how many is fully staffed? And I was told 8.
8 lifeguards.
8 lifeguards. I'm like, are there enough lifeguards to staff that? Absolutely there are. There are full-time lifeguards, there are call-in lifeguards, and there are first and second year lifeguard trainees that are coming up the chain to do this. So I got that little nugget. I'm like, okay, well, it's not a shortage. So what is the problem? Then after my tweet, and I'm kind of like, I don't think the lifeguard thing's the problem. The city puts out a release late last week. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to reduce the number of lifeguards at the beaches across the city and use those lifeguards to be redeployed to outdoor pools. Like, they were kind of throwing me a little bit of a bone, throwing a bone to all the people that want a free Kits pool. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm like, this is great. More lifeguards for the people that say we don't have enough, even though I know we have enough. Put that tweet out. And then, George, I thought about it. We're hosting the World Cup.
Well, and also I prefer to swim in the ocean. We go to the beach and swim generally, and I'd like to have a lifeguard there. So you're gonna take my lifeguard away? What? And we had a big soccer thing coming. So yeah, you're saying
that's what people.
Thousands of people
are
in
going
July
to be coming in June, and they are going to come and they are going to go to our beaches. We need lifeguards. We need paramedics. We need emergency
you can have
physicians.
Both. You should be able to do both.
We can and we should. And right now, I am learning that there are some significant problems in the management, not even the elected park board commissioner level, but in the management level at the city, the staff, the park board staff. One person in particular who I'm triple checking this, but I'll give you the quote. This individual with the power to staff is saying, I want to break the system.
Whatever that
Why do we have people
it already is broken, so well done. You did it.
Right. Open the pool and let's fix what's broke as we see it happen, instead of you trying to make up for the budget that you overspent on pylons around Stanley Park.
This is a governance issue too, though. I mean, of course, if you can find staff, I mean, bureaucrats, there are great, amazing ones, and then there's ones that are just like bottlenecks or whatever. Right. And but that comes down to governance, and obviously we are not the governance of Park Board for as long as I can remember now. Maybe a 1-year anomaly where maybe John Cooper was the chair, and they got some stuff done. They had the zip line and the Ferris wheel, and they had some fun things were starting to happen. Yeah. And then the party that he was in screwed him over.
Right,
it's a whole other story. However, for the most part, for now 20 years, we've had incompetent governance, and so of course, why the culture, I'm sure, of staff and culture is a mess, because there's no way to feel like you have any confidence in the people who are elected, and neither do I have confidence generally in this park board, and that's why I was always supportive of removing the park board. Sorry, John Cooper again. Two shout outs to John Cooper in the podcast today, who was the chair of the park board, but it's because it was so many years of incompetence, and I think now that's not happening. So okay, now we're back to where we started. So now we have an election coming, everybody. Like, listen to
Can
the
I just-
candidates who are going
I wanna
to say the
bolster what
things
you
that.
just
And
said.
by the way, Jody, you keeps getting
Can-
asked to run for park board, and that's I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
I'm
I love
not.
that push.
In no universe. You run for mayor, I'll run for park board.
Oh,
No, I won't. I lied. I just lied and corrected myself all in one. I know. But I want to bolster that one point you said, because 20 years it's been a problem. Maybe 1 year or one cycle, 4-year cycle, it worked a little bit. And then, but for the most part, it's been a nightmare. And the people within those jobs, taxpayer jobs, right? We pay them. And there's the dysfunction at this level going on within that. And nobody is stepping out and stepping up because they'll lose their job. Like, it is the definition of insanity to continue to do what hasn't worked over and over and over and over again. And other municipalities all around Vancouver don't have the same problems we do. And it's time to point out who's breaking the system on purpose in the job that they are being paid a good salary to actually have run smoothly. If your goal
commissioners
is
have
to
to do their
break the
job.
system,
Yes.
then you are in the wrong job. I am going to name names of the people who are saying they're going to break the system. And if anybody listening to this podcast or is interested in this subject matter who would like to reach out to me with information on the people who are trying to break it, because there are good people caught in the middle of this, I want to protect those people too. I want to know who's doing a good job, and I want to know who is trying to break this system, because it is time to shine a light on those people. I don't want to run for office. I don't need to run for office. I don't need a job in the city. I don't want a job in the city. I want to go swim at my pool when it feels like it's a good time to go swimming. That's all I want.
The ultimate teaser, because we are now going to be off for 4 weeks on spring break. So you're going to have to wait, everybody. Potentially, you have to follow Jody on her Twitter account, which is
At Jody.
I'm George_Affleck. But I'll be in the UK, and my daughter's getting married, so I'll be over there.
Congratulations.
So big deal. And we're taking some time off for spring break because the kids, well, actually, my kid is your kids, I guess. I guess let's they tell spring break at college?
Reading break?
Okay. I got mine last year of high school, 2 weeks off. And then
It's a semester change now.
Right. So we'll be back in 4 weeks, and maybe by then,
Yeah.
the world
by
will
then
be
I
a
will
better
name
place to
names.
live, and you'll be able to name names, and all
That's
will
right.
be resolved, and we'll all be swimming in the pool, and there'll be people on the beaches from Europe without topless
That's right.
because they're from Europe.
This was bad. Wait a minute. This is why I wrap up the podcast. Like and subscribe, share with your friends. If you're passionate about the things that we're talking about, please do. Send us a note. Follow us at UnSpun Podcast. And again, at george_Affleck, at Jody with a Y, Jody-Vance on my socials. And we'll be back here after our break.
Bye, everybody. See you soon.